I know that human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
Hello and welcome to the Spoilt Milk Movie Podcast. Here at Spoilt Milk, we discuss, dissect, and destroy movies, especially guilty pleasures. Then we decide if it's truly spoilt milk or if it's ascended into a fine, luxurious cheese. So without further ado, let's go.
Warning, this podcast is full of spoilers for the title feature and there's bad language from the start. If you've never seen the film or you're offended by bad language, you have been warned.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spoilt Milk Movie Podcast. As always, my name is Cham and I'm joined by the Hobo and Big Ed. How are you, Big Ed?
Great. A bit off-centre.
Yeah.
But all right.
We were just talking about the big head thing and how people wouldn't know why we reference your head being big. Do you want to just remind us of why that is?
So, as a child, I was playing a really sick game of hide and seek. Oh, I've just said, I hate that phrase.
Sick.
Oh, I think
Such
it meant
a
like
sick.
sick and twisted.
No, so like just a right sweet game of hide and seek. And I hid between two garages. And I really wanted to win. So I got like further and further down like this gap between two garages. Didn't realise it got smaller and smaller. And none of my other body, the rest of my body got trapped, but my head did. And then the fire brigade had to come and cut a hole out of some poor man's garage to get me out. Oh, you can see the scar there.
What? Oh, is that from...
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You got a... I don't remember you saying you got a scar from it.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I feel
You're
bad
like
now.
the bad guy from Lion King. You got a scar across your face.
Mufasa.
Yes.
He's the real bad guy.
I mean, he's a monarch, isn't he?
You like, if people haven't seen a photo of you, basically they can just imagine like one of those Funko Pop toys.
Exactly that.
That's basically you.
Just a giant head.
I'm going to buy one of like Wednesday Addams and shove it between two garages and take a photo.
What if we all had Funko Pop figures, then Katty's head compared to our heads in the Funko Pops would have to be even bigger.
Even bigger?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Or we would just be Funko Pops with normal size heads.
Or can you get like big ones or little ones, or is it just
Yeah, you
little
can get
ones?
bigger ones.
Yeah, I
Can't
know
you?
with Attack on Titan, they have like these giant, and they're bigger Funko Pops than other normal.
So maybe it'd just have to be, we get a small one and a medium one. Take the head off the medium one, put it on the small one.
Yes.
So that could be any toy now then.
It's like a baby doll's head on a Barbie's body.
So we are here to talk about a film. We're not doing a top three
But
tonight.
you've not
'cause
even introduced the
I
Hobo.
did. I said it first, the Hobo, but he don't really deserve
Okay.
much.
I've got a story about getting trapped somewhere.
Yeah, but yours all involve like hand jobs and stuff like that, and paprika rich chip.
No. So I was walking down the street giving a hand job. And
So we're not going to do a top three tonight because we've probably got a lot to talk about with the film that we're discussing, and we might even recap a bit about how we felt about the first one because we're doing It Chapter 2. We already did It. It's
It.
not called Chapter 1, is it?
no,
It's
it's
called
called
It.
It.
And we all gave it luxurious cheese?
Yeah.
As far as
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Pretty
Yeah, sorry,
solid
I'm
movie.
burping.
So after that then, Katty, where do we find ourselves at the beginning of It Chapter 2?
Watching some gays get battered.
Oh yeah, that's how it opens up, isn't it? Yeah.
And not in the good way.
No.
They are not enjoying it.
No.
No, so we're back in Derry. All the kids are now adults. It's like, what is it, 27 years later?
Yeah.
All the kids are now adults, and we get to see how Derry has just gone to shit.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But it's not just after kids anymore. It's just after anyone.
Yeah, so is that what it's like in the first one? Is he just after kids? I can't remember.
Well, you only see him after kids in the first one, but it's the story of it is just he feeds off fear. So
Yeah.
kids just tend to be scared of everything.
And this is more, at this point, he's just feeding into the worst habits of everyone with the fears and stuff like that. So he's getting all the town folk to gang up on the gays because they're scared of change and gays.
I think at that point, in that period of time, everyone just hated the gays anyway.
Well, isn't this set now? The new one?
I think
Chapter 2 set now, isn't it?
Yeah, because the first one's set in like the 80s, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
So yeah, this is up to date, maybe like 2 years ago or something. But I think it's now.
In the book, there's lots of gay bashing.
Because that's how the book starts, if I remember, with that scene. That was really near the beginning. His name's something like John Mellon or something like that.
I think it was based off like an actual event that happened.
I
as well,
believe so, yeah.
Or inspired by, I guess.
How did we feel about that opening scene?
This is going to sound really bad, but I liked it. Not because of the gay bashing.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit.
But no, I liked it. It's like small town mentality, isn't it? And it gives you the perspective of it's not just kids that he wants to eat, it's just anyone that's just petrified.
I like the fact that it was kids that were doing the beating as well. Like, I feel like if I was walking home and I was thinking somebody might kick my head in, it would probably be like some like dodgy teenagers. It won't be like, I won't be too scared about passing adults or whatever, but it'd probably be like teenagers who were just bored, who'd be like, right, I'm going to kick this bearded concept.
It does a good job because if you think about it, obviously scaring kids is easier. We've all scared kids. It's fun. But when they're grown up, it's how do you make that, try and keep that same fear? And this does it. It brings it to more of an actual social issue that any adult might have, not just because, not just gay adults, but any adult might be, like you say, scared of teenagers just picking fights with them and wanting to beat them up for the sake of it.
I live with Tim. He's perpetually scared. Everything. Absolutely everything. I can be sat in the living room and he's in the kitchen cooking and I'll go to the door between the living room and the kitchen and just be like, oh, what are you making? And he'll scream.
That's what Laura's like as well. She's like, I didn't see you there. It's like, I was speaking to you a moment ago.
I live here.
Yeah, but you're a bit of a creep.
Yeah, well, that's true.
There's a difference between walking to someone and crawling on the floor and just looking up at them.
I actually live underneath those steps there and I crawl out.
I imagine you don't make much noise though when you walk.
Like it floats.
Yeah. Like that thing on Spirited Away.
No, because of obviously my toenails are really long and unkempt. You hear a click clacky.
like a dog on laminate.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that noise.
Yeah. But then you hear
Not
a
from
little
your toes.
as well, because
Yeah,
I've got a bit of scurvy.
Imagine Hobo's toes though. Like right long, discoloured, crinkly toe. They'd look like them crisps.
Yeah, like a paprika ridge chip. Like Pringle toes.
Oh, yeah, that's what they used to call me. Oh, Pringle toes is coming into your house.
So the film starts with this opening scene and you see Pennywise and he ends up like getting the dude and dragging him away and biting him.
In the armpit.
And we get that nice little balloon bit, which is nice.
I like them
nice.
balloons.
But then, and this was something that, for me, I felt like they didn't really like latch onto, was that adult fear that you were just talking about. And because you mentioned it, I thought it was something that it started really strong in the way that he almost changed his approach to scaring people by using the townspeople or like attacking people in a different way. And then that kind of goes out of the window throughout the film. They bring it back a little bit with Richie and the gay bashing again, but he still does the whole like turning into monsters and stuff, which I was a little bit disappointed with. I was quite looking forward to seeing how a version of Pennywise would terrorize adults compared to children. And it seemed like the filmmakers took the same approach.
Yeah.
I think part of that is as well. So all the adults come back, bar
Stanley,
the one who kills himself. And then they decide they each need to split up and do their own separate thing. So that by themselves, them deciding to split up and find their memento or
their
token. It feels like they can't be as scared of it anymore, because when they were scared in the first part, they was like, we need to stick together. We've figured it out now. We need to stick together. They come back and they're adults and they're just like, all right, let's break up and do all this and then meet back.
Yeah, but Mike's got his magic vase, hasn't he? And he's like convinced of all that.
But why can't they go for the tokens together? Like, all right, just stand out the other side of the room.
Because then they kind of crowbarred that story in from the first one that didn't really happen, where they say that in the first one they did split up. And that's when they earned their tokens.
Yeah, when they all fell out when Bill punched Richie in the face. And they all had a fallout and they were away from each other for like a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And Ben saw Beverly and her head set on fire in those scenes.
Yeah. Like some of the scenes were really good individually. I just wasn't sure.
I liked Richie's bit.
Oh, in the arcade?
Yeah.
With, is it Henry's cousin?
Yeah.
Or something.
When they're playing arcade machines and then they're just like, when he's like, do you want to have another game? And then Henry comes in and he's like, get away from me. Like, I don't want to kiss you. Is that what arcade machines like lead into?
Is that slang?
Yeah. They're going to an arcade. You went to the arcades over the weekend, didn't you? Did you not end up just like making out some random guys? No.
No. I mean, it didn't immediately make me gay.
Girls. Or in-betweens.
2019.
Like kids?
No.
I mean, grim.
Like the head of a man and the body of a lady.
Yeah, or body of a fish.
Yeah,
okay.
Like a minotaur or a minotaur. Did anyone else think that this film felt like they didn't know they were going to get a sequel until they did? Like, there was a lot of stuff where they were doing like flashbacks to like things in the first one that didn't happen in the first one, that they like had to go back and refilm them when they were a bit older and de-age them. And I was like, it felt like it should have naturally moved on from things you'd set up in the first one that they didn't. And it felt almost like, well, oh shit, we didn't think we were going to do this well. We better I
liked the bits of like flashbacks that you didn't see. Because realistically, like, what could they have followed on from the first one?
No, that's what I mean. I feel like those bits should have naturally, if you were going to tell this story, if you looked at the whole of this story now and were like, right, divide this up into a first film and a second film, you'd put those little bits in the first film to like set up what's going to happen later. But it felt like they got to the second film and were like, oh shit, we need something for them to do. We'll get them picking up these totems or whatever. But we didn't mention totems in the first one. Okay, well, we'll do some. Because
you wouldn't have known about them because Mike hadn't got his magic vase then.
Yeah. But what I mean is you could have subtly put them in and then like the poem or whatever, that was in the first one. It had a purpose between like Ben and Bill and Bev, lots of B's again. And then they were like, oh, that's my totem. But you didn't need them to say that in the first one. It was just in the story. And then you're like, oh, right, that's it. Whereas some of the other things where they're like a coin from the arcade, I was like, he could have just had a subtle line in the first one about it being his lucky coin or, I don't know, something cheesy. And then later you'd be like, oh, right, that's what that was
They
about.
did go back and went, right, what could their totems be? And designed by committee rather than what felt natural in the story and putting it in earlier in the story. So it flowed a bit more natural.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. The idea's good. It just felt like they should have come earlier. And then, but they didn't. It all came in the second.
I think it might have something to do with the fact that, like, when you move away from Derry, you forget about everything. And then they've come back and now they're remembering, like, little bits. So they're remembering things that you wouldn't have seen in the first. Because if it were just flashbacks of the first film, you'd just be like, this is shit.
No, but if they'd have been, this is what I mean, if they'd have, like, it felt like if they'd have known that, it wouldn't have been like blatant and obvious in the first one, but they could have just been like, oh, this, and then just show you a really quick, like, 2-second flash
Like
of someone.
how they did with the turtles. You know, there's always referencing the big space turtle from the books.
Yeah.
There's loads of little things like that. They almost stand on one. There's one in like one of the bedrooms at some point. That's a little sort of thing. And I really wanted that to have a payoff. But
Well,
it didn't need to. But if they'd done that with the totems, it would have been...
You kind of did get it though, because like you saw Richie in the arcade in the first one, and then there's a whole thing with, I forget his name all the time, the small one.
Eddie's got his inhaler.
Eddie with the inhaler.
That was fine. That felt natural. Like that moved on from the first one. What was Mike's? Oh, I can't even remember what Mike's was.
I can't remember what Mike's was.
Oh, poor Mike, underserved Mike.
And he
again.
was better in this. He was better served in this one. I felt he had much more use, not just in this like part 1 and part 2, because in part 1 he wasn't overly used, but also in the TV movie he was really underused. There was a bit of a
but adult Mike wasn't the best actor, and actually child Mike I thought was all right.
I thought adult Mike was a decent actor. Yeah, he seemed.
I didn't think him or adult Ben were very good. You liked adult Ben, didn't you?
Adult Ben.
No.
Did you like him because he had a husky voice and was fit?
He's tasty.
He was tasty.
But
he
remember,
really was.
he's still a fat kid.
But he's tasty.
Well, that's what Pennywise would say. Are you Pennywise?
So what did we think of the casting of the children to adults?
I'm shit at actors' names. I am so shit at it. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, but half of them you wouldn't know really anyway, would you?
Well, it's the guy that plays adult Richie.
Yeah, Ed, what's his name? Oh, what's his name now?
Do you mean the comedian guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
Bill Hader.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's Bill Hader,
He's been
James
in loads of
McAvoy,
stuff.
and Jessica Chastain are the big ones.
So I know James McAvoy. Don't know the names of the rest of them.
I know the name of Mike because he's the guy from the Old Spice adverts.
What?
Yeah.
Mike is the old, like, now look, the thing is now diamonds. I'm on a
I
horse.
didn't know
It's
that.
him. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Then.
Before Terry Crews.
I thought the casting was spot on. Like some of the adults legitimately look like
Fucking
the kids.
Eddie. He was just the kid growing up. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, you are Eddie. Like, there was even a bit where it kind of faded from young Eddie's face to old when he was in the pharmacy. And I was like, that is just the same person. Like, I'd say it's the best adult casting of children.
Jessica Chastain was pretty good. I didn't see it at first, but then when you saw them like both with blood covered over them, but you saw like the face was very similar.
McAvoy's not great.
No.
Yeah.
Apparently, all the kids gave the adults like pictures of them,
Yup.
like just like headshot type pictures
Okay.
of them, of all the adult actors to like keep. There was like an interview with the guy who played Richie, just like, oh yeah, people were coming around to my house and just be like, oh, who's the kid? And it's just like, a kid?
It just reminded me of the airplane thing. You know, when he's in the cockpit with the kids, like, hey, Billy, you ever seen a grown man naked?
I love that film. So really good casting. Do we all agree then?
Yeah.
Just solid. What did you think of Bill Hader then as Richie? Because he's very funny in this film.
I thought it was great.
I loved his Jabba the Hutt impression when he was doing his mum or whatever. Not doing his mum. But he was, I'd say he was like, for me, the MVP of the film.
Yeah.
But I also thought there was too much humour in the film.
I disagree. There were so many people, because I went to go see it in a big group of us. So many people saying I don't like the humour, and I'm like, no, it makes it like that's who he is. Like, he tries to make light of every single situation because he doesn't like to deal with anything other than like humour as an emotion.
Yeah,
I get that. I just think because like, and his character is fine to do it. It makes more sense, but. Then the other kid was joining in on the humour as well.
But that's their relationship. And I think me personally, you could kind of relate to them more like as a group dynamic.
Yeah.
And because you always have them two cunts that just laugh at each other and just rip the piss out of each other. You always do in any sort of friendship group.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I disagree with the humour. With people saying there's too much humour.
I love the humour and I laughed all the way through. It was more the timing of the humour. So quite often, like, the scares were undercut by a joke and I was like, and I was like, oh, that's quite creepy. And then he'd crack a joke and I was like, oh, you've just kind of, I don't know. It was funny and I liked him the most. But I felt like the horror elements suffered as a result.
I feel like that's me though. Like something scares me and I'll just crack out some shit.
Yeah, and that's I think like kind of a bit of both your points. I think it's fine for Bill Hader in the scary moments to still be cracking out jokes, but the other one not. It's better when they were all together. I don't think there's enough of them hanging out together and just having a bit of banter because all the actors got on really well. But then when it came to horror moments, I don't think all of them would have been cracking jokes as much. Maybe at the very end when... But
this was something we talked about in the first one where we were talking about Richie and Eddie being possibly too similar, that actually they ended up merging into like very similar characters. We'll pick up with some other points shortly because we'll take a little break and we'll come back for part 2.
This is a break from the podcast. This isn't fake, it is real. Grab a biscuit, a Kit Kat, or toffee, maybe samosa.
Welcome back to part 2. So we were just talking about like the comedy and stuff like that. So I wanted to ask you guys about the Chinese restaurant scene then. So all the characters all meet up. We start to see a bit of the group dynamic. What did you think of that scene? Because that's in the original, isn't it? Were you happy when they went to the Chinese restaurant, or did you think they might do something different?
No, I'm glad they went.
Yeah.
Did you think I was just going to stop there?
Yeah.
No.
It's like being really difficult on the podcast. No. And how do you feel about this? It was good seeing them all interacting. And then the bit with the kid was kind of weird, but a good moment. The kid comes up to him and just wants his autograph or something, or is he just looking at him?
Yeah, that's after like everything's gone really weird though, isn't it? In the actual room, what all this shit's starting to come alive,
and
like
bird comes out of the thing.
The little creatures are born and shit starts attacking them, and like fortune cookies start going mental.
You said that really Yorkshire. Fortune cookies.
Fortune cookies start going right mental.
Yeah, and then they start like smashing up the table, and that lady's like, "Everything okay?" And you're like, you'd be like booting him out. And then that little kid. Is it just that he's a little kid because he grabs him, doesn't he, and shakes him?
Yeah, I think he thinks that is it.
Yeah. But what makes him think is it?
Oh, it's the way he says something. I've forgotten what he said now, but doesn't he say something? And
he's repeating like something out the line of his
that's it.
One of his shows.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a bit creepy or something like that. And then he starts checking him and he's just like, yeah, it's a line from your show.
He doesn't say beep beep, does he?
He might do.
I don't know.
Okay. But yeah, and then he starts shaking him and you find out it's just a normal fucking kid. Yeah. I remember laughing hard about him in the cinema just when his parents turn up.
Like that was a good, like, funny moment. And a lot of the funny moments were good. And that was well timed, that one.
And that's the same kid that's in it throughout, isn't it? Yeah.
So with his little shining skateboard.
But he's like a bit of a Georgie surrogate kind of thing for Bill to have some kind of journey through. Don't know if it works that
well. Sounds weird saying Bill needs to have a journey through a kid.
Well, after the Chinese scene, they then go back to like the kind of the hotel, don't they? They're all like, let's get the fuck out of here. And then they meet up at the hotel. But Bev does the weird thing in this where like she talks about, and I feel like I'm being a bit negative, but she talks about how she's seen them all die. She's had these dreams. And then that kind of just gets dropped. Yeah. It never really goes anywhere.
Because from the deadlines from the part one, you think it's going to have a bigger effect than it does.
I mean, she's still a bit...
But no more than anyone else. But I thought that might feed into it somehow, or they might use that to defeat him or something, like you've had a glimpse at it. But she mentions it, and then she never mentions it ever again.
Does
I
it
was like, oh.
come up more in the book, or
Not that I can remember.
it's just something that happens to her, and then once she's out of it, she's out of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
What lazy writing. Speaking of which, at the start, they keep setting up saying, "Oh, you're terrible at writing endings. You're terrible,"
yeah.
and they kept hanging a lantern on the fact that it's gonna have a terrible ending. And I really wasn't a fan of that, because it felt like it was kind of their get out of free clause if people didn't like the ending. That they said at the start, like, "Oh no, we can't write endings."
I don't like it when anything does that. They do it in like X-Men 3, was it Apocalypse, that we reviewed, where they're like, "Oh, everyone knows the third film sucks." And then you're like, "But your film sucks." And I'm like, if you're gonna make that joke, you better make sure either you nail your ending or that your film isn't a shit X-Men film.
Yeah.
Did you, not to jump straight to it, but did you think they nailed the ending here? It was better than the one in the 90s version.
Yeah, when they just beat fuck out of a spider.
But then they just kind of like shout him down at the end. Well, we can get onto the end, I guess, in part 3, if we have a part 3. But then Mike starts showing
his magic vase.
Yeah. He's got that like weird. What did you think about his magic vase and his trip to see the Native Americans?
I thought it was bullshit.
Yeah, because that's new, isn't it? Like,
I cannot remember anything about a magic vase.
I think that's new. I know the ritual of Chaud or whatever is
Chaud.
We've all had the ritual of Chaud.
What would that even be?
I don't know.
Just snort then just peaked. I can tell this is a genuine.
So the
great.
ritual of Chaud. That's in the original, but this new one with this weird magic.
Cat is broken a bit.
With his magic little bucket, I don't really. I didn't get it.
Ritual of Chaud and magic bucket.
It sounds like a weird porno.
Yeah, it does.
I like the animation of what, how he came about it and what the story is of its origin. I felt that was enough of an origin that, like, I didn't need to know everything, but I just knew that it came from somewhere, and that was enough of an origin.
That was fine, yeah.
Yeah, but
Native Americans, I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it was a bit of that's an easy cop-out. Let's just... That explains away everything, because it's Native Americans, and it's magic, and it's...
But then he made that bit up anyway, so maybe...
And Mike drugs Bill.
Yeah, he fucking does, doesn't he? Gives him some rahip, and then like he starts fucking on. Why does he give him drugs as well?
So he can see.
So he can see his magic bars and his Chaud.
Is Mike using like racist stereotypes of native Indians?
A bit of peyote.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he's just been in Derry too long, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's gone a bit doo-wappy in the head.
Oh yeah, because like when they're in the library and Henry comes back and they kill him with that Native American axe.
Oh shit, yeah. What is with all the Native American stuff? Henry, I mean, I feel like we shouldn't spend much time on him because I feel like the film didn't.
He was like a shit Michael Myers.
Yeah, he was. Do you know what? There was a bit right at the beginning where they're like, the sewer spews out Henry, and it's the original kid Henry.
Yeah.
And it shows him going home and him getting arrested. I thought they were going to go for more of an approach of like, he was spewed out as a kid now, and it was going to be
time travel shit.
Yeah, like he'd been like saved or like stored as a kid, and he was, and I was like, I was on board. For that. No, but what I mean is, what we ended up getting was like this old man who was just a bit shit, who didn't really do much. And I thought, because I liked the kid who played Henry in the first one, I would have quite liked it if he'd have maybe I've got a bit of paedophobia. This whole like,
But it would have tied in with the
scared of
start
kids thing.
a bit more with, the gays being attacked by a gang of kids.
like kids,
If he'd
yeah.
come back as a kid and found a gang and... So
Even because he finds his mate, doesn't he? But who's like a bit of a zombie. Like, if
Yeah,
he-
it's like, is a zombie driving him around? Is that
Yeah.
real?
Yeah, I don't know what was real. Apart from the Chaud.
this is the thing. It's not that unrealistic things can happen. It's a movie. Obviously, like weird shit can happen. It just kind of needs to be some form of consistent. Some kind of make sense. As long as I didn't feel that sometimes they just went, well, it's a bit difficult if we stick to our own rules here. So let's just see if anyone cares.
Let's break them all.
Yeah, so talking of like...
He didn't even have his mullet.
No, he didn't. He kind of had a shit mullet, but talking of like monsters and things coming back, but we had the Mrs. Kirsch scene as well.
Oh, that was,
So-
I
that was
love that.
great.
Yeah.
I wanted her to be an actual old lady though. I didn't want her to get big.
I 100% wanted her to be an old lady.
Like, not because I want to see flappy old lady tits, but I think it would have been more scary if it was just an old lady rather than like it morphing into that weird humanoid.
100%. I thought I was going to say that and you were going to be like, no, that's creepy or whatever. Yeah, because that was a good moment and then it was let down by that big gangly monster.
I think they tamed it themselves because of how popular the projector scene was in part one, which was a really creepy moment. Build up is very similar to the old lady thing. And then at the end, he's massive. And it's, I mean, that jump scare is great. This one was a bit trying to do the same thing, but where you do it right, like where if it was just the old lady still being a creepy old lady.
I liked it when you saw her like tiptoeing naked just in the doorway.
But there was a good bit where she kind of froze and then like moved in it. They'd cut like a couple of scenes out, so it like jerked a bit. And it was really creepy and they built up all this like tension and then it was just this big monster. And I was like, oh, what was that noise?
I feel that kind of sums up my problem with a lot of all the. I liked so many of these scenes in the film, like the bit where we're getting all the totems and those scary moments. But I feel a lot of them are ruined by moments of that where it went from a very realistic, scary situation you could be to being over the top. Like with the ending, I thought it went a bit too over the top.
Well, what about Stan's head in the freezer? Because I like the idea, and I think they do it all right in the first version of their friend has committed suicide, and that's horrible and tragic and really quite sad. And just imagine then seeing like the head of your friend or whatever who's recently passed away. That'd be like really kind of creepy and torturous.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a spider and started running around. And I was like, that's not scary anymore. That's just a spider head. And I'm like, they did that in The Thing, like in the 80s, better.
Yeah.
If either of your heads were in my fridge and then sprouted legs and then chased me, 100% I'd be scared.
Oh yeah, of course. Like if most things that happen in horror films happen in real life, you'd be absolutely like petrified. But you've got to think about how it affects the characters and the audience if you're making this kind of film. And I think they kind of just focused on what would scare the characters. Whereas seeing somebody's creepy head, or even if it was a bit sad for a moment and like he worked at them in a different way and was like, I'm going to bring the fear out of you in like a sadness approach. But it was just this monster again. And I was like, oh, and then the dog Pomeranian turned into a monster and it was lots of monsters. And I was like, this isn't very creepy at all.
If the severed head was saying that he's like talking about his experience being dead, like I'm dead and Pennywise is forever like eating my soul, help me. And that would have scared me more, that you're being chased by this creature, but you're seeing someone who's been like succumbed to it in one way or another, and they're just recounting this horror that they're currently going through. I'd be like, I don't want fucking none of that. I'd be in Australia where there's actual spiders, which I'm scared of, but still less scary than that fucking head recounting its tales of woe.
And the spider head felt like it could have been worked in the first one because he's scaring kids like it's a spider head. And I don't know, it just wasn't the monsters in this, I was like, I'm just not bothered for the monsters.
I liked the scene with Eddie in the basement of the chemist.
I didn't know what that was about. And what was the music?
Was that
bit
the
with
mum's strapped to the...
Yeah.
It was a good scene, but what was the music bit about? Where the thing spews up on him and then it plays Just Call Me Angel of the Morning or whatever for like 2 seconds. Do you remember? It like spews in his face and it's like, just call me angel, and then cuts back. And it like plays a pop song while he's getting spewed all over in slow motion.
Is it supposed to be some sort of reference?
I think it's just a joke again. And I was like, another weird joke at a weird point.
Because it was the leper guy, weren't it, from when he were a kid?
Yeah,
trying to eat his mum.
Quite good. Yeah, and they had his mum back.
The tension building up is slowly going to where that curtain is. Great. I loved it.
But that was his wife now, wasn't it? It's his wife and mum are the same actor, aren't they?
Okay, yeah.
Or was it his mum in that scene?
No, I think it were his mum.
Yeah.
But his wife was in it at the beginning, played by the same lady.
Played by the same lady?
That makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, it made sense. I like that little extra detail of him. He's essentially married his mum. It made sense for his character.
That's just an ongoing joke with Jewish kids, though, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Big Bang Theory.
Is Eddie Jewish? I know Stan is.
Oh, am I thinking of Stan?
I don't know.
No, I think Eddie's maybe Jewish as well.
I don't know.
Just less. Stan was his character was Jewish.
Yeah,
it was a bit where I think maybe Ed is Jewish, but
I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying he's Jewish because he's got curly hair.
Yeah, there's a lot of thinking about it now. There's a lot of shortcuts they take, which are generic shortcuts. Like there's always shortcuts you take in a movie. Like I was listening to a podcast and they said they set this character in New York because they're like of Chinese descent. They wanted to first cement that they were a New Yorker first who happened to be Chinese. And the easiest way to do that is put them in New York. They were American first, sorry. So the easiest way to do that, put them in New York, most American city, everyone recognizes it. And then that's a shortcut. But this, I mean, there just feels like a lot of things that they just did for the sake of it, like making Stan's character like overly Jewish was just that. I can't remember much of his character other than he was Jewish and he was scared.
Well, I think this was when we in the last one where we were talking about there's too many characters, which they really get away with in the first one, and it works in a book that's like bigger than your fucking head. But like in this, and even though this is a 3-hour film, like especially when they were like, let's split up, I was like, really? You're gonna like every one of these characters is gonna have their own little bit, and I was like, no wonder it's fucking 3 hours.
I didn't feel like it felt like it was 3 hours long though.
No, it didn't feel like a proper like epic 3 hours, but it definitely felt longer. It felt longer than the first one, but of course it did. But it didn't feel like sticking on something like Deer Hunter, like that kind of 3 hours. But it was definitely, I was like, there's too much of the token stuff in the middle. Like Richie and Eddie could have gone together.
I was worried.
Mike could have been like, well, he did. He kind of was like, I've already got mine, so I'm cool.
I was worried going into it, like, oh, it's 3 hours. What if it sucks? It's really going to drag. And when I was watching it, it didn't drag at all. No. I think it flowed nicely. I never, at one point, it's not like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where I was like, the start of this is really slow. It's really dragging. There's some unnecessary driving scenes and stuff. Where
this is actually driving.
Yeah. So there's just some really long ass driving
scenes. They're good
scenes.
though, the driving scenes in that film.
I really need to watch it.
Kind of seen it in Kill Bill and...
I fucking hate Kill Bill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really? Right, well, shall we call it for part 2 and we'll come back and...
Everyone's off home now.
We'll talk about the end and how we felt about it.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you doing?
Taking a pod.
No, you're not. You will not be taking our pod today, sir.
So welcome back to part 3, the final part, I swear, of It Chapter 2.
Is that the full title of the film?
Yeah. Well, you say that. They're talking about doing a third.
Yeah. Well, with the amount of money they're buying.
Like the history of Pennywise.
Yeah, I'd like it if it were just all about Pennywise.
But would it be Pennywise on whatever planet he came from on the meteorite? Or
I'd like it to be like a life story thing. So it's in the middle of the two films, and you get like flashbacks of like where he came from, like how he grew up, how he got to Derry.
Would you like to know more about the Festival of Chaud?
Maybe we could.
It's a festival now, so not even a ritual.
Maybe we could just have a whole feature-length film about the ritual of Chaud.
Yeah, and the bucket,
the magic bucket.
Everyone fill up a bucket.
Well, moving on. Well, while we're talking about the ritual of Chud, then, so we do get to the end. They all take their totems down and put them in the bucket. And then, do they set fire to it or something?
Katty's trying to shake out the laughter from her.
It's just the ritual of Chaud and putting your totems in the bucket.
Is it like a really elaborate game of soggy biscuit?
Yeah. Surely if you've got a bucket of Chaud's not staying in there.
So what? You were asking, do they put them in the bucket and burn them?
Yeah, do they burn them?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, they're setting them on fire.
And then it don't work, does it? So Mike's been fibbing, hasn't he? Has he made the whole thing up? Or did he actually go and speak to Native Americans, but it just didn't work for them?
No, they died, didn't they? They all died.
Well, this is what I didn't get. If he'd got this plan from people, why did they think it'd be successful if it didn't work for the people before?
Because what was it?
Was it something like they didn't believe?
Yeah, they didn't believe.
No, but
properly.
he says that after, doesn't he? He's like, they didn't believe.
Yeah, so he's convinced himself that
okay,
they didn't believe. That's why it didn't work. That's why he's like scratched off one side of the fancy vase.
I thought he scratched it off to kind of fuck with him.
I wonder who made the vase as well, because it's meant to look like Native Americans made it, but they all died. So was one of them just watching going, oh shit, this is probably my fault. Anyway, I'm going to keep scratching this vase.
Yeah, for one person down, like, maybe this is why. But yeah, like, because it scratched off one side of it where it said that everyone died and Pennywise lived, because that's what Pennywise was saying, like, oh, he's not told you the full story, has he?
How do we know the side that he scratched off didn't just say, I voted for Trump or something like that? Just really controversial.
I was here for you.
Brexit.
Yeah. So Mike just went crazy.
Yeah.
He kind of convinced himself of some bullshit.
It's all that peyote that is
taken away. So they end up like, he becomes big, doesn't he? He becomes the big spider. So they did do the big spider.
It was better though.
Yeah, with his big head on. I quite liked that.
It's like me as a spider.
Yeah, it was. And then they all get split up again, don't they? So Beverly goes to like a toilet. That sounds weird. Beverly just goes to a toilet. She's nervous.
From the first one where she got like trash poured over at the start. Yeah.
And Ben ends up back in the kind of the den and gets buried, doesn't he? And then Richie and Eddie are at the 3 doors again with the scary, very scary, not so scary.
Yeah, and they decide to go for the very scary one.
Yeah, and they see the Pomeranian, don't they? That turns into a monster.
Oh, that moment was so great. Yeah. I loved the just, oh shit, what is this Pomeranian going to be fucking doing in a second? Just
but I quite liked it if it just didn't turn.
Yeah.
They just sat there like...
And then... What happens to Bill?
Bill
he just goes underwater, doesn't he?
Goes into
goes back
basement.
to Georgie. And I quite liked that bit though, where he said that like he just didn't want to play with him. That he was like, it's your fault. And he said he was just like, I couldn't be arsed. He was like, I wasn't really that ill. I just didn't want to go out.
Don't you find it weird that I liked that was, why it happened and why he felt guilty? I don't like that. I didn't really get the vibe of that until he said it. Yeah. I didn't think he acted it in any particular way that he had this big guilt because he just didn't want to hang out with his brother. It was just like at the end, oh no, yeah.
Because that's a really good idea. And like that, like you say, that would have been something that I'd have liked to have seen take its toll on McAvoy. But it didn't really. They kind of focused on him going after that little kid.
Why wasn't his character then motivated? Every action he did was because since then, he didn't want to be the one that didn't want to hang out. He was always like, right, well, I don't want to hang out, but I feel bad for not doing it. So that's something that could have driven his character throughout the whole thing of just, he never wants to be in that situation again in case the worst happens. So regardless of what his friends are doing, if it's stupid, dangerous, he's always going to be there. And it just didn't feel like I had that driving force behind him.
No. Bit of an odd one. So then Eddie dies. How did we feel about Eddie's death?
Oh, we're a bit sad about that.
Yeah, I liked Eddie.
I didn't think if anyone was going to die, I thought they was going to kill off Mike again. I thought they were going to do it. I really got the feeling they were going to screw him over at some point, but they didn't. I was quite happy with that.
Did they kill Mike in the first one? I don't think they do. I think he
just
wheels off in like a stretcher.
Yeah, they just don't really do anything with him.
No, they don't, do they?
Poor Eddie.
But yeah, Eddie dies, and then we start to kind of understand that Richie was in love with him.
Yeah.
Which is really, I feel like, kind of crowbarred in again. Not even just in this film, but actually quite far into this film.
Yeah.
Right at the end of it.
There was no part of me at the end of the first one that, and not that it had to be like something rammed down my throat or anything, but no like, but no inkling that there was
He's not
any,
talking about the Richard Love Chud.
but it didn't have to be like ham-fisted
All right, Cham.
or over the top, but just any kind of inkling that there was a bit of romance blossoming or something, and it just wasn't. And then it came up at the end, and I was like, oh.
Do you think
right.
it's because of the whole like, oh, well, if a boy likes you, he'll be mean to you?
Maybe, but I don't know. Did you get any like gay vibe from Richie from just watching the first one?
No,
I didn't. It seemed a bit odd. Again, it felt like they didn't know they were going to get a second film when they made the first, and then they've had to like retroactively go back and add things in that maybe either they wanted in there or they didn't think about because they didn't know whether they'd get a second film or not. And then they've added all these bits in. And I was like, oh, whoa, that came from nowhere.
I mean...
or maybe it's... Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, I don't have the best gaydar, but I think generally you would have picked up on something if it was.
Maybe it's because like the beginning, it was all the gay bashing. At the end, it's all the gay loving.
Yeah. But again, just seemed to be focused on this film only. And there was nothing mentioned in the first one. So then they defeat him, don't they?
How I was going to mention as well the fact that who's the one who kills himself at the start of this film? Stan. There was a thing that he left a note or something saying, I did this to reunite you.
Yeah, so that's right at the end, isn't it? Where they kind of deal with it. He says that he wanted to take himself off the table. Didn't he? So I think they're going for a bit more of like an ownership suicide than a fear one.
Yeah, he'd written all these letters before he'd actually killed him, and they all got hand delivered to everyone.
I didn't think that landed at all. There's nothing, probably because they didn't have enough time to give to his character, but he didn't have anything of him before that he felt like he'd owned it or anything. He just kind of felt.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't really have anything like any, again, weight to it. The decision, it was just, I did this to help you. And I'm like, well, no, that actually helped. Yeah. That would have been nice. Maybe if you'd have helped, Eddie would still be here. Or sacrifice yourself in the important part, not in a nice warm tub at home. But obviously, like, I think they were trying to go for a different approach to suicide than what they did in the original, which is interesting. I don't know if it worked though.
No, I would have preferred it if he'd just killed himself out of sheer fear.
Me too.
And like
that really works in the original one, the 90s. I really like that bit.
Fear and shame. Like, I'm terrified, but if I don't turn up, I can't live with like the shame and guilt that had come with it. So I'm just going to kill myself. Yeah,
I think that's a much better way. So it didn't really work, did it? Well, and then they defeat Pennywise, don't they? They kind of bully him into dying, which is an odd way to end the film.
It was really weird. Yeah. What was the message if the message is just bully someone until they die.
It was just because, like, it's show no fear, isn't it? It's like, you stupid clown with your stupid head.
But then they're like, I'm not scared of you. I'm not scared of you. And then you like hear them and they're like, fuck you, you fucking dick and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that's not the same. Like shouting, I'm not scared of you, and then just name calling like are two different things.
And especially when he gets small, he goes from a massive spider to like tiny ugly baby, and then they're just like, "Fuck you, ugly baby."
Yeah. Like, that's not the same. That's a really odd. And he just turns into like a saggy balloon, like when a balloon's just going a bit like done. And then they kind of have that letter reading thing. I really liked the bit where they saw the reflections of themselves in the window and it was the kids. But, and this is like probably a big can of worms that I shouldn't open, but I think that should have been the only bit of the kids in this film that was new. I think they could have had, like saying before, flashbacks of things in the previous film where they were talking about the totem. But the only new thing, all the bit where they were in like it looked weird as well, all the de-aging where they all had these weird smooth faces and they'd like squished Richie's head because he'd obviously like grown gangly and like, we've got to make him look short again. And I just thought that would have been a really nice moment when they looked at their own reflection and saw themselves as kids again. But you're like, well, you were a kid 2 minutes ago in a flashback that you just added in.
I disagree.
I didn't like that.
Disagree.
I was like, you've done a whole film with the kids. Don't need any more of them.
They've had their time.
Yeah.
It's the boomers' time now.
Yeah. Anything anyone else wants to say before we start rounding up?
No. Bev and Ben finally get together.
Oh, yeah. God, we've not really even talked about. And she kisses Bill, doesn't she?
Yeah,
And
she's
then
just a slut.
Every time you come here and slut shame me.
But she's just working her way around. Like, she's like, oh, yeah, Bill did this. Bill wrote all this stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can't write for shit, mate. And
Gotta find the tastiest lolly.
Oh,
not interested
crude.
in Mike's Chaud.
And then all of a sudden, like, fucking hot, tasty Ben comes. And he's no longer a fat ginger kid. He's now a tall, dark and handsome man who's worth a lot of money.
Yeah. The moral of that story is if you're a fat kid, you're worth nothing. If you're a handsome, rich adult, then you get the girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think there is no actual moral in this story. It's if you're like scared of something,
Call it
either you'll die or you'll turn into the bully.
Yeah.
Which is true. Is generally what happens. Fuck, it's just a horrible moral.
So don't fuck a fat kid.
Well, don't fuck
any
kids.
kids. Yeah.
When you're a kid.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, don't fuck the fat kid up until he's a hot.
I still don't think
really...
we should be encouraging kids to fuck.
Stephen King does enough of that, doesn't
Yeah. Well, I'm just relaying the moral of the story.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So don't fuck a fat kid until he's tall, dark and handsome and worth lots of money.
Nice.
Smoke loads of cigs. Even if you're a kid, smoke loads of cigs because it's cool as fuck. What else is there?
Bully the bully.
Bully the bully.
Yeah.
So
and then go further.
So you win.
Yeah.
Bully them so they die.
Yeah.
And if your childhood bully comes back to get you, stab him with an axe and you'll get away with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
No police will investigate it.
No.
It is fine.
Also, lie to your friends and put them in danger. That seems to work.
With a magic vase.
Yeah.
Don't try and save a kid in a hall of mirrors because he will just die anyway.
Oh, yeah. That was such a good scene.
Yeah, but then they'd already done the scene with the little girl with the birthmark. And I was like, well, you've done this. And it was very similar to the Georgie scene.
Yeah.
So who wants to go first then if we're summing up?
I'll go first.
Ooh.
Spoilt Milk.
Spoilt Milk.
I really liked it at the time. I was watching it and I enjoyed it. And it flowed really nicely, but I think I'm not sure how I'd feel about watching it again. And when I think about everything, I don't compare. It's mainly because I'm comparing it to the first one. And the first one was so good and more of a complete movie. I don't think the second one is as much of a complete movie. It's just kind of extra.
I'm going to ask you then on that, 1 and 2 together as a full sitting.
As a wanna.
Yeah, what would you give it?
Ooh. Come back to me.
Okay. Do you want to go? Oh, I'll go.
I'll go.
What do you think?
I think it's luxurious cheese, but not as much now we've sat and spoke about it as what I did when I came out of the cinema. Because it's made me realise that there is a lot of just shit shoehorned into it. His magic vase. Yeah. The whole thing with like Henry and stuff, it's just kind of like, oh, let's put that in there. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'd watch it again.
I've seen it twice. And I enjoyed it both times.
I've not seen it since it came out, but I'd watch it again. I'd do it in a wanna.
I feel like I'm similar to you too. I would go Spoilt Milk as well, but it sounds similar to you. The first one was really good, and this one was just a bit disappointing. I did enjoy it in the cinema. Came out and was like, that was good. And then it's over time. And this is why I like kept making notes on my phone. I was like, what about this? What about this? Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen Mama?
No.
Yeah.
Like, Mama's not great. It's fine. But it's the same guy who made these. And when he made it chapter 1, whatever we're calling it, I was like, oh, this guy's like taking what he did in Mama and progressing and moving forward. And now I'm like, oh no, this is like Mama. And I'm like, is that actually a bit of a fluke, that first one? And did the kids get us through a lot? I don't know.
Because there's problems with part 1. Like I said, like what you've always said, there's too many characters, so some are underserved and there's bits, but generally it kind of worked. Where I think this one, there's just some really standout moments, some standout scenes that I really loved, but I didn't feel the same connective tissue between all of them.
It's because you just love the kids, really.
I'd give the whole thing cheese, but it is disappointing in the end.
Yeah.
Like Mama, though. That was an all right film up until the end when it was shite.
What would you give it? Oh, well, you're cheese for both anyway, so aren't you? So you, as a whole...
cheese for both individually, but as a whole, Spoilt Milk. That'll be the most confusing.
So it's a double bill, Hobo? What would you say?
I want to be positive, and the first part is so good. So I'll say luxurious cheese for them together, even though I haven't watched them all together. I might change my mind, but definitely Spoilt Milk for the second part.
Anything else anyone wants to say before we finish?
Rubber baby bugger.
Oh, God.
Rubber baby.
I forgot what it was halfway through. Can you?
What was it supposed to be?
Rubber baby buggy bumper.
That's it.
Rubber baby buggy bumper.
Yeah. I think I almost said bugger bumper.
Don't bugger a bumper.
Bugger baby.
Oh, no.
No.
On that note.
If you like the Spoilt Milk podcast, get your lazy ass over to Instagram at Spoilt Milk Pod. Also, hit like and subscribe. You son of a bitch.